Hey friend, quick question before we get into it. If you had a medical emergency tonight, would the people you love know what you want and where to find the paperwork? Not in their hearts, no, they know me. I mean, written down, accessible, and actionable documents. Because here's the truth. Most families don't fall apart in the crisis because they don't love each other. They fall apart because nobody planned, and an emergency does not wait for clarity. Welcome back to Grand Plans. I'm Susanna Barton, and this is the official relaunch for 2026. Grand Plans is about aging, yes, but not in a gloomy way, in a grown-up way. A real life is happening, and I'd like to stay in charge of it as long as possible way. This season is built around one big idea. The second half of life isn't something that happens to us. It's something we can design if we start early enough. And 2026 is the right moment for this relaunch because we are standing on the edge of a demographic wave that is already reshaping everything. Families, housing, healthcare, caregiving, money, and community. Let's zoom out. In the U.S., about 10,000 people turn 65 every single day, and this pace carries us through the final stretch of the baby boom generation aging into retirement years. And it's not just, hey, there are more older adults. It's more older adults living longer and more adults needing support, often for longer periods of time, often with complex chronic conditions. The Joint Center for Housing Studies at Harvard notes that the U.S. population 65 plus grew from about 43 million in 2012 to 58 million in 2022. It's a 34% jump in a decade. Translation? This is not a niche topic. This is not a podcast for later. This is the conversation for anyone who has parents, is becoming a parent to their parents, or is simply planning to live long enough to need a plan. Now let's talk about what most people want. AARP's surveys consistently show that a strong majority of older adults want to stay in their homes and communities as they age, often well over 3/4 of adults 50 plus saying essentially, I want to stay put. But here's the tension. Wanting to age in place is one thing. Having a home that can support aging in place is another. A frequently cited housing accessibility statistic from research summarized by housing advocates and the Harvard Housing Center is that only a small fraction of U.S. homes, around 3 to 4%, have key accessibility features like no-step entry, single-floor living, and wider halls and doors. So we have this massive mismatch. The desire is high, the readiness is low. That means planning for the second half isn't just about money or medical forms. It's about where you live, how you live, and whether your environment can keep you safe and independent. Okay, so now we've got to talk about care because this is where families get blindsided. AARP estimates 53 million adults in the U.S. are caregivers, more than 1 in 5 Americans. And then there's this invisible number that hits like a punch, the value of that unpaid caregiving. AARP is valuing the invaluable update estimated that in 2021, unpaid family caregiving contributed about $600 billion worth of care. Now let's talk about paid care. CareScout's cost of care data put the national median hourly rate for a home health aide in 2024 at $34 an hour. So if you've ever wondered why 24/7 care can financially flatten a family, here's the math. $34 an hour, 24 hours a day equals about $300,000 a year. And that's not a luxury. That's a second mortgage-sized reality every single year. And yes, this varies by region and many people see higher rates, but even at the median, you can see why people feel shocked. And this is the part where I need everyone to take a deep breath because the myth is so common. Medicare does not cover long-term custodial care, the ongoing help with bathing, dressing, toileting, supervision, and daily living that many people eventually need. Medicare.gov says it plainly. Medicare and most health insurance do not pay for long-term care services. So when I say planning, I'm not being dramatic, I'm being accurate. Because if we don't plan, families end up trying to solve a long-term care puzzle with short-term tools. Panic, GoFundMe, unpaid leave, and adult children quietly emptying their savings. So let's talk about the most preventable source of family stress, decision-making in a medical crisis. A major review published in Health Affairs found that about 36.7% of U.S. adults had completed an advance directive, meaning roughly 2 out of 3 have not. Now, if you're listening and thinking, I'm healthy, I don't need that yet, I get it. That is very human. But here's what happens in real life. It's not so pretty. A fall, an infection, a stroke, a car accident, a fast-moving diagnosis, and suddenly the people who love you are asked questions they never wanted to answer without you. Do we intubate? Do we do CPR? Do we put in a feeding tube? Who has the legal authority to decide? That's not just a paperwork problem, that's an emotional burden problem. Grand plans exist to reduce that burden. Plain and simple. Gets to the very fundamental of it all. So here's what's coming in 2026 in the relaunch season. Yes, today's episode is host only, but I'm building this season with voices from all angles because the second half touches everything. You'll hear conversations and guidance shaped by experts in their field, wellness professionals who can speak to strength, mobility, prevention, sleep, and nutrition, the keep your engine running side of aging. We have a death doula who can bring calm, clarity, and humanity to the hardest chapters and who are incredible at helping people name what matters before a crisis hits. Caregivers and care professionals also are on the list. The people who live in the real world of what happens at 2 a.m. and can tell you what families wish they'd known a year earlier. We're going to cover the full Grand Plans map: medical, legal, financial, housing, transportation, and community support. Because planning isn't one decision, it's a system. And the tone here will stay what it's always been with me in grand planning, which is no shame, no scare tactics, just honest math, real stories, and practical steps. So here's your small, powerful action step for today, this week, not someday. Tell one person where your key documents are or where they will be. If you don't have advance directives, put it on the calendar. And if you're caring for someone else or know you'll be, start building your plan while you still have choices. Because earlier planning gives you more options. Later planning gives you fewer choices. And never planning, that is where GeriDrama shows up. I am so glad you're here for the 2026 season relaunch of Grand Plans. If this episode made you think of someone, please text it to them. That's how we change this culture. All right, so the next episode, we start getting very practical. As soon as the lineup is complete, we'll get the important conversations started. Stay tuned, and until then, look for ways you can put the grand in your plan in 2026.